Hey, this is Everett, and this is how my day started today. And no, that's not true. This is how my day starts every day. This is how every day begins. See, while I'm sleeping, all the mental and emotional pieces that were all spread out all over the place just 8 or so hours ago have all fallen back into place. I'm now at this perfect emotional baseline. It's not a good day, but it's not a bad one. I'm not worried, but I'm not happy. There's no excitement, but there's no stress. The day doesn't have any input yet. Basically, all is pretty good. So I wake up. I go downstairs. I let our dog Riley out. I make coffee. And as I start to wake up, I plan for the first things I want to do, I want to accomplish. I'll get some writing done. I'll take Riley for a walk. And there are a few creative ideas I have that I want to flesh out. So I'm starting to get a little excited about what I can accomplish this morning. And after a few minutes, the mental and emotional gauge actually begins to pick up slightly into the positive areas. I make plans for the day. It's going to be a good day. I'm excited. Then I walk into my office. I turn my computer on. There's an email from my boss on something that I didn't do correctly. There's another email from a customer that's not too happy with me. And the needle begins to go down. Then I remember a call I didn't make. Then I remember a meeting I've been putting off. Then I think about how really crappy I am at this job, how really crappy I am at every job I've ever had. Then the remote control in my head flips the channel from the work stuff to personal stuff, and I think about that fence that I've been promising Debbie for over a year that I would fix. And what about the canoe that I bought 2 Christmases ago for Alex that is still in the backyard waiting to be restored? And all of this fires off at once. I mean, it's not even 6 in the morning yet. I haven't even finished my first cup of coffee, and I want to go back to bed. And this happens to me pretty much every day. But here's the interesting thing about today, because this is what happened. A memory from a dusty mental folder floated down to my desk, and here it is. You ready? I am not my thoughts. I am only the observer of my thoughts. Kapow! Because this concept is the opposite of how I've been looking at it. The Everett philosophy is that my thoughts, good or bad, are me. If there are good thoughts, then it's a good feeling. If there are bad thoughts, bad feelings. But this means that I work for the thoughts, that they dictate my actions and reactions, and I do as they say, and I don't think I like that very much. I mean, when you're in a movie theater and you're watching a film, and a character drinks too much and crashes his car into a tree, you feel bad for the character, sure. But you don't leave the theater and stop at an AA meeting and then schedule that defensive driving course so your insurance rates don't go up. Those images on the screen are just like thoughts. They are there to make us think, to inspire us, to keep us curious, but they're not in charge. Or for me, they're not in charge any longer, which is an incredibly freeing concept. So how do I pry the gap between these thoughts? How do we become the observer of them rather than have them dictate what we feel and do? Well, I have no idea. So I reached out to 2 writers I know to help. And I chose these 2 because they're completely different people with completely different perspectives and backgrounds. So the first is Matt Cox, and Matt is a con man. He was at one time the Secret Service's most wanted fugitive. He did 12 years in prison and is now a true crime writer. Matt said that one thought, just one decision based on one thought, could change everything he has built since he's been out of prison. So he keeps close tabs on it.
All right, my name is Matt Cox, and I was asked to do a video about being an observer of your thoughts as opposed to allowing them to dictate your actions. So it means that the things that I think, randomly, or I guess that come into my head immediately, that I don't have to act on those things, that I can step back and kind of view those thoughts from a distance, and I definitely think that's something that I've learned to do. I don't typically act on the first thing that comes to mind. For example, I recently got out of prison, and I was struggling. When I first got out, I was certainly struggling, way more than I am now. But I was renting a room from someone. I was driving a Jeep that was just falling apart. And I remember I would drive by, there was a house that was worth around $500,000 or $600,000 that was down the street. And I used to drive by this house all the time. And this is horrible. And I would think how easy it would be for me to take out a mortgage or several mortgages on that house. I mean, it really literally for me would have been, I could have simply just gone downtown, satisfied the loan on the mortgage, transferred the deed into a fictitious name, and then called a few hard money lenders to meet me out there. The house was not occupied. I knew that the people that owned the house lived up north. They'd been trying to rent it out for 6 months. It was worth $500,000 or $600,000, and I could have easily borrowed $1.5 million on that home. And I would drive by that house constantly and think about that. But I didn't act on it because it's something that I've done in the past, and it's something that got me in trouble. And it was a knee-jerk reaction to my current situation, or my situation at the time. And I knew that ultimately it was a bad decision. Although I felt confident I could get away with it, I also felt like it was leading me down a path that had never really made me satisfied as a person or happy, and that all it was really going to do to improve my current situation was have me living in a nicer home and driving a nicer vehicle. And by not acting on those types of things, and not acting on my knee-jerk reaction, which is typically always I don't want to say aggression, but it's always to fight back, to say the first thing that comes to my mind. By stepping back and kind of looking at things from a distance and evaluating them before I act on them, I typically make such way better decisions. It may not be an immediate decision that makes me happy, but it's definitely in the long run a better decision.
Now, with most of us, one simple knee-jerk thought can't lead us to defrauding a bank out of $1 million or possibly going back to prison. But when you look at the proportions of our own lives, I mean, it's all the same. The decision to take a cash advance on the company credit card and we'll figure out how to pay it back later, or to cheat on our spouse, or to take that one drink after 10 years, all can be done quickly. We have the thought, and then we do it. And then the fuse is lit. Jim Bourrie has more of a poet's take on this question because that's what he is. Jim is a poet, and I asked him the same question.
My friend Everett asked me a question this morning. He does that now and then. This one was about how we need to realize that we are more than, perhaps even separate from, our thoughts. He said something like, our thoughts are not real. We are not our thoughts. Very philosophical stuff. And he wants me to discuss this in less than 2 minutes. I do know that we can really clutter our minds with a lot of useless thinking. We fill our heads thinking about crap that we can't do a damn thing about. And it's a self-perpetuating trap. Thinking folks are aware of the trap and try to avoid it. Sometimes I'm one of those thinking folks, but not very often. We may not be our thoughts. I think they're part of us. And like most of our parts, we have some control over how they act. I get up in the morning, or more often lie awake at night, worrying about things that I have no control over. And suddenly, I know I'm trying to find nourishing fruit on a fruitless tree. That's a hopeless state. That state of being consumed by thinking that has no mental or spiritual or practical nourishment. So how do I pry myself away from all those non-nourishing thoughts? Well, when I'm heading into that trap of uselessness, or when I realize I'm already there, I follow one or more steps to break the cycle. My first step is usually to go outside. Crossing a threshold into the outdoors seems to change my focus. If I can't get outside, I try to think about being there. I sneak a peek out the window or see what birds are up to, what the squirrels are destroying. If I can get outside, I try to find a physical task, nothing too strenuous, that requires a little bit of focus. It can be as simple as walking down to the bridge or up the hill to the quarry entrance. If my thinking train is harder to derail, I'll work on the wood pile or shovel some snow or something. Pretty soon all those useless concerns just fade away and I can get back to thinking about something more useful, like writing poetry or figuring out how to control the stupid squirrels.
So if someone like Jim, one of the most content and happiest people I know, struggles with thoughts he can't control, this actually makes me feel a little better about myself, but a little sad for him. I mean, if unrealistic worries keep Jim up at night, then what hope does someone like me have in stepping back and becoming the observer? But I think I can, and I think we can. So I'm not sure what the silver bullet is with all of this, but I do know that from now on, I'm going to make my thoughts take one step back, and I'll get to them in a minute. I am in charge, and so are you. And we'll let our thoughts know what we decide to do.